So I became a registered energy advisor. So I was doing renovation contracts with local bands in the Northwest. So I'm gassing up at a local gas station in Wetset, and I saw a sign in the window advising of a passive house training course to prep trades in the area for work on a passive house apartment complex. I had no idea what passive house was. I knew it was kind of Cadillac building design. So I was interested. So I wasn't from that band, but I applied anyways. And I'm kind of telling the story because I just persevered when things weren't necessarily going in my direction and things kind of worked out. So I guess moral a bit of the story, my story, is just persevering and continuing to plug on when things aren't necessarily working in your favor. So I said, I'm not from your band, but I'd like to take this passive house training. And the guy said, well, we have 30 seats and only 10 are taken, so you can attend if you want. So I attended, and this Passive House Canada guy gave us a presentation, a 4-day Zoom session during COVID. And at one point, he advised the audience of the possible career option becoming an energy advisor, which I wasn't sure, didn't know what it was about. He said there was going to be a shortage of EAs because the Greener Homes program was just firing up, and Greener Homes program, of course, requires energy audits to be completed on the home. So after taking that course with Passive House Canada, I looked up energy advising and lined up training. There was plenty of training online to take because I think they had some like 300 energy advisors in Canada and they wanted 2,000. So there's a real shortage. So there was a lot of work, but not enough EAs. So I jumped on board and did a lot of studying. We had to do 2 exams, a foundation exam and then the energy advisor exam. And they both had a very high repeat rate because they were so challenging. One of the things about the foundation exam is a lot of grid-scale builders were applying and they figured with their hands-on knowledge, they'd be a shoe in it, so they didn't study. And there was a lot of failure rate probably because of that, because there's a fair amount of building science involved with the foundation exam. So I had to ramp up my training to figure that sort of stuff out. And then came the energy advisor exam. And from there, once you pass those exams, you become a registered energy advisor. And I think I was one of the first in BC as a First Nations energy advisor under this new offering. There were some energy advisors who were grandfathered in who had previous experience before this whole process came about. So part of my process, I had to find a service organization, and I figured being First Nations in the area, I'd have no trouble finding a service organization to manage my files. Basically, who they are is likely an engineering group that is taking on your files and managing your files and making sure the files you submit to your EnerGuide audits meet the standards put up by Natural Resources Canada. So I actually had a really challenging time finding the service organization. I started in BC, then I moved to Alberta, Saskatchewan, right across the country, trying to find an SO to take me on as a person that they can monitor and train. I finally found one in Ontario. So that was a bit of a daunting process. It took me like 3 weeks to find an SO when I thought I would have one in the first week. So once I got that started out, got the SO process sorted out, I started doing energy audits from Prince George to Prince Rupert, which again was challenging because it covered a fairly wide area. And at this stage, heat pumps were a big deal, and most of the energy audits were happening in the Lower Mainland where the temperatures are pretty mild and heat pumps can run pretty efficiently down there. Get up to the north towards Smithers, Hazelton, colder areas, Burns Lake, towards Vanderhook, Nakazagoot, and it gets pretty cold, and heat pumps were tanking when it got below -20. So there weren't near as many energy audits being done up here. So that involved a bit of searching around. So officially got documented as EA during the heyday of the program. So I'd be affiliated with this organization, and I got that done and jumped through those hoops. And I started soliciting bands to see if they wanted energy audits done. And some bands are just getting on board with the process and requesting the energy audits. And there's a bulk application process through the Green Homes program for bands. So that was an avenue of getting to work with the bands. And I enjoyed doing the audits with the bands, as I found the homeowners were very happy to have someone come into their place to hear them out on issues they were having with their house. Maybe the house is very leaky, or windows are frosting up, the heat pump or the furnaces might have been caving, or the wood stove wasn't burning efficiently. So having somebody come right to their house and, I set the blower door test, and that was usually pretty impressive to them, using a thermal imaging camera to show where homes are losing heat. Those are real eye openers, and it got people very interested in the process of energy efficiency. Next slide, community power. So I then went on to pick up contracts with other organizations because I wasn't getting a whole lot of work to work as an energy advisor. And I found work with Community Power. It's an organization or a business in British Columbia, and I got a 2-year contract with them. And they do a lot of work with bands where they do comprehensive house assessments, where they go in, and I would come in as an energy advisor doing an abridged version of an energy audit, and a home inspector team would come in as well and do a comprehensive house assessment. They provide to the band and assist and line up resources or provide resources to do the energy audits or to do the renovations and upgrades. So they were pretty involved with a lot of bands in BC. So I was doing some of this contract work with Community Power as an energy advisor. So a lot of things started morphing into this process as an energy advisor. That was beyond what I was expecting as an energy advisor, and he opened a lot of doors. And from there, I got in touch with Tom Welfare, who was one of the original people who were working with Fraser Basin Council. I connected with, and Tom was a real inspiration to me to keep me plugging away at this process and learning more and more about being an energy advisor and working with First Nations programming. So earlier on in the process, I got involved in the Energy Efficiency Mentorship Program, originally called the Train the Trainer Program, and myself and about 7 other guys who were all red cell carpenters were involved initially. And I was allowed in just as an observer because I wasn't a red cell carpenter. But once the course is finished, they realized there was a shortage of trainers in the Northwest, so they asked me to become one of the presenters of this information to bands in the Northwest. So from there, I moved on and became one of the mentors, and it became the Energy Efficiency Mentorship Program. So basically, I'm approaching bands and telling them about this program and providing them information from the website, from the FBC website, and what the Train the Trainer Energy Efficiency Mentorship Program is about. And one of the biggest challenges about the process is I'm cold calling bands and saying this is what the service is about. And there's always a skepticism when I say it's free. They're so used to hearing free and they're waiting for the other shoe to drop where the expense starts to show up once they've committed. So one of the challenges was getting through to the staff to convince them that it actually is free and it's a good service. And once I got my foot in the door, the word would spread to other communities. So that word of mouth is a really important part of the whole process to gain the trust of the communities. Next slide, please. So there's 3 photos of training going on at BCIT. So as part of the Energy Efficiency Mentorship Program, every year they would access another 7 to 15 students from the communities, whether they're housing reps or somebody nominated by the band to take the training. There's several Zoom sessions that are, 3 or 4 hours long. And the trainees take that Zoom session training. And once they've completed that, they then go to BCIT and take a 2 or 3 day hands-on training session put on by BCIT, where they learn about installing windows, deep energy retrofit kind of stuff, envelope air sealing sort of stuff. And that's a picture of me beside a mini blow door and explaining what a blower door test is to the trainees. I think we've gone through now 4 EMP offerings with reps and bands throughout BC, and you're only completing the training. The long-term plan is these trainees go on to provide this same training to other bands, and from there, those bands send future trainees. So this knowledge and experience and education gets passed on from band to band as more and more bands get involved in getting their housing reps or staff to come down and take this offering. And hopefully it'll continue. As Daryl mentioned, they're waiting to see if there'll be more funding in the coming year for more of this stuff to be offered. Next slide, please. The EPIC program. EPIC program is a 2-year pilot project. It was managed by Fraser Basin, just finished this past spring. So I made a lot of great connections with plenty of like-minded First Nations training resources organized through Fraser Basin, put on by BCIT. We learned about community energy and emissions plans through Community Energy Association, and had all these resources that FBC accessed and provided to us through either Zoom training or hands-on training offered at BCIT. So I attended also a number of conferences such as Generate, that's put on by Clean Energy Association. That's usually in late spring, I think May or early June. And a lot of networking going on, meeting a lot of people who are accessing the same resources as myself, and just sharing similar stories and gaining experiences from that. So that was really useful. Next slide, please. Okay, so as part of that process, we did some field trips, and the picture on the left with the blue tubes is actually a Run of the River project, and that was very cool to see. It's outside of Squamish, and there's 3 tubes are tubes that have water that's been diverted from a fairly large stream, and the water rushes down there. I think it ran maybe about 1.5 kilometers of a drop, kind of at the slope as it is right there. So by the time you hit some turbines down at the bottom, it's got a lot of momentum, and it's spinning those turbines, and that's generating electricity. So the First Nations groups in that area were very wise to take on this process of setting up this Run of the River project, and Hydro was buying that power back. And on the picture on the right, that's a solar program that Tsleil-Waututh Nation had set up outside of their band office, and we took a tour of that and got some valuable insight into how these larger solar programs could be set up and how they could benefit the band. Next slide, please. Now, part of my EPIC program responsibilities set up mini solar programs with the band. This is just a program or a solar panel set up operating the greenhouse behind me, but they were also getting into solar programming, paneling for the homes as well, accessing to funding through BC Hydro and such. And picture in the middle is the heat pump program. That's installing cold climate heat pumps in homes in the area. And that in particular heat pump was set up with a house that had a wood electric furnace. So BC Hydro is agreeable to keeping the wood furnace as a backup with that heat pump in place. Now the wood furnace has to be wet inspected to make sure that it's meeting the latest safety standards. And once that's all confirmed, then you've got the heat pump that kind of gets you down to maybe -18, -20 efficiently. When efficiency drops off, you can set up the tip over to where the wood heat will take over. And that's a good backup plan if you're exposing brownouts in your area where the power goes out for 2 or 3 days on average when you need a backup plan if it's really cold out. The picture on the right, community awareness, I mentioned that. That's me with a solar or a thermal imaging camera. You take a picture of that, and it's kind of science fiction, kind of space age, new age kind of stuff, and it really gets the attention of the homeowners because you can show them what thermal bridging is and how much heat loss can occur from windows, from attic hatches, from poorly fitted doors and things like that, and where the basement walls, concrete walls, meet the pony walls. There's a lot of air leakage down there, and using a thermal imaging camera and door blower test with smoke pans really illustrates that effectively as well. So concrete things like that really builds up community awareness, or homeowner awareness of what can be done without not a whole lot of work involved. So I did 90 plus homes going through this process of doing energy audits. And as a result of doing these 90 homes in the community, I did what was called a community energy and emissions plan. And I had a lot of assistance through the Community Energy Association in developing this community energy and emissions plan. This plan was a bit different than what they were used to doing because I'd done these audits, so I showed where the homes were presently with their energy consumption, whether they had baseboard heats or electric furnaces or oil furnaces. I could pretty actively gauge how much energy they were consuming or how much their carbon footprint was. And then I would do the follow-up process of the energy audit where I'd model heat pumps put in, triple glazed windows, maybe increasing air tightness by 25% and showing that how that could impact the energy consumption and what would happen with carbon footprint and such. So that was all put into this community energy emissions plan. And the idea is development of the CEAP will hopefully open doors to other funding sources and opportunities and grants, because the band has demonstrated an ongoing initiative to develop energy efficient housing stock while reducing carbon footprint. Next slide, please. So one of the other programs I do with Fraser Basin Council, and I've been on board with Aaron for I think 2 years now, is Ask an Energy Specialist. And again, that's the challenge of cold calling the band and trying to convince them that you're offering a free service and you're not going to take them for a ride. So that's always fun, cold calling bands and making that connection. So a good part of this program has revolved around working with housing staff. The common theme is overworked housing teams wanting to get into deep energy retrofits, but not having the time to follow through with the application process, which could be pretty daunting at times. So we mentioned the peer program. So kind of the light at the end of the tunnel right now that I'm seeing is rebate providers have come through with the Partners and Indigenous Energy Efficiency and Resiliency, or the peer program. And Aaron shared a link for the peer program earlier on the notes. Idea of this peer program is that making the rebate process easier to navigate. They've got energy coaches on board who should be responding to you within 3 days to that week, where they'll give you advice on where your application is and how to, I guess, streamline your application so you're not bogged down by all the things that used to bog people down with the previous rebate process. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the other tasks I take on is working with BCIT doing energy retrofit field training. That's also in part through Fraser Basin Council. So I attend a number of bands with the Red Seal construction rep from BCIT, providing training and education on deep energy retrofitting homes. So we haul in these mock-ups of walls and we bring in triple glazed windows and have the participants install the windows, and they're taught how to seal them properly and effectively, so there's no way that wind and water is going to penetrate the window. So a lot of hands-on training in that regard. And the people I've been taking the training have been on and off reserve trades and handy people. I just want to learn more about this process, and their insight into it's pretty valuable. I gain a lot of valuable skills. Last slide, please. Last fall, I was in Squamish for the Kalila project, and that was put on in part to the Aboriginal Housing Management Association, or AMA. This project's been going on for a number of years, and it involves a youth camp that was located north of Squamish, and there are several of these cabins you see in the picture on the left. Really basic cabins with single glazed windows and window or air whistling right through them because they're so leaky. So BCIT had their team show up, and I came with my blower door gear, and equipment was things like insulation and triple glazed windows and heat pumps are donated by local resources, and Aboriginal youth come through what the province took part, spent a week there, and you can see in the middle of the picture, they're getting hands-on experience through BCIT reps into how to properly air seal a house, how to insulate the exterior, how to put the roof on, how to make the house more airtight. Some of these places were going for like 15 air changes an hour to 1 air change an hour or under. So that illustrates how effective they were at picking up the training and learning very quickly how they could make a huge change in the energy efficiency of a cabin with the training they were getting in such a short time span. So they were going from super leaky houses, almost step code 5 houses with heat pumps, with this 1 week of training from the BCIT reps. So that was very cool to be part of. And that's about it for my presentation. Thank you.